All right, we are finally here. It is that time again. The build up to the major, the Budapest major from Star Series is less than 11 days away, which means Valve have finally dropped in another round of pick'ems, another round of stickers, and that means another 500 YouTube videos from 500 different analysts trying to help you get that diamond coin. But none of that matters because I'm here with Tony, Why Not CS2, the strongest, smartest man in the history of North American Counter-Strike, to give you guys the 100% mathematically guaranteed correct path to getting through stage 1 of the pick'ems. Firstly, Tony, how you doing?
I'm good. I don't know if either of those things are necessarily true, but I'll take the compliment.
They're true. Listen, they are 100% fact checked.
Good lord.
Yep, backed by science. No one can doubt these numbers. Listen, many people are saying this, but Tony, you're at the pinnacle of the art form, some might say.
Let's go.
But we're going to sit down today. We're going to go over the Stage 1 pick'ems as well as the first round matchups and try and make sense of this. Stage 1 tends to be the most chaotic point in the major, so there's a lot of things that are up in the air. So if you're not sure where to go, this is the video to follow. If you guys enjoy this kind of pick'em coverage, we'll be doing it throughout the major cycle, me and Tony. So make sure you show us by leaving a like, leave a comment down below, subscribe to the channel already. Help me in 10K subs by the end of the year. We are almost there, so every sub counts. Take a second as well and follow Tony at the link in the description down below, both on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. Me and Tony have done a lot of work in the past. There's a lot more coming down the pipe, so make sure you follow him on all his socials. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. All right, Tony. First place to start, obviously, is with the 3-0s and the 0-3s. Yes. And looking at this field, Tony, I think it's pretty clear. If there's one very safe pick to go out of this stage cleanly, it has to be Legacy, right?
Yeah, we were kind of chalking it up a little bit about how, you know, they've been on form. I mean, obviously, last major, for those of you who have been following for that long, we had our disagreements on this Legacy team and how good they actually could be. And I think that potential has been realized outside of just the quote-unquote major fluke. So I'm with you. I think the 3-0 for them is probably one where they're going to be looking to come into this one pretty confidently with that on their agenda too, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're the out of this field in stage 1, they're the only team with a recent, like, you know, S-tier tournament win out of the CAC. They had deep finishes at Bucharest afterwards. They are a team that have been doing really well over these last, like, month and a half. They seem to be just getting better with more tier 1 LAN experience. They're beating top 10 teams in the world. They are definitely cutting way above the, like, roster caliber on paper that they show.
Yeah, I mean, talking about their individuals for one thing is probably in years past a question as to whether or not, you know, Dumao is going to get poached or something along those lines. I think that conversation is now over because there's just so many other pieces to this team that can be valued, and Lotto is one of them. I think Lotto is probably, in my opinion, the best Brazilian player all around that isn't on Furia. So this team right now is in prime condition, in my opinion, for them to just use all of the pieces that they've had, all of the players that they've been able to accumulate over this period of time and sticking together and really just make the best of it. And I'm not saying that they're going to come out and win the major or nothing like that, but I'm not saying they won't.
No, and then, like, they also are, like, one of the most clutch teams in general, like, even for, like, the top 10, which they're currently now, I think, like, the 9th ranked team in the world on VRS, or, like, close to it. And out of, like, the top 10 teams in the world, they are one of the most consistently clutch teams I've seen. Like, everyone is winning clutches, whether it's Lux, Lotto, or Dumao. They will win 1v2s at an incredibly high percentage, and that, like, gives you such a supreme X factor. Really, probably the only concern is that they probably have one of the tougher opening round matchups. They're taking on FlyQuest, and while I'm known as a bit of a FlyQuest denier, a FlyQuest hater, in a best of one especially, that's not a free matchup.
No, it's not. We were, you know, having I guess, like, a mental dilemma as to whether or not FlyQuest are the team that we even need them to be to put faith in them to go through 3-1, 3-2, right? And my argument to you was that there's been a major shift in that team's culture and in its positions with Azar now as their coach. And I think it's looked really good. It's land proven, at least relatively speaking, to be able to have found an upset win against the team that wasn't going through a honeymoon period or anything in 3D Max on land just recently. So, I mean, going into this, like, they should, right? Like, every major feels like they should. And when they don't, it's just kind of the thing that you need to be, I guess, ready to be disappointed for. And this is one of those moments where I would be disappointed if they didn't do it, but I think I would personally go amiss by not saying that they still should, right?
Right. And then just to kind of cap it off with Legacy, if they get past FlyQuest, that should be pretty much them going 3-0. I don't see another team besides them really threatening them. So for a first pick, that's Legacy going 3-0. Afterwards, it gets way more hairy because every other team remaining has, like, obvious flaws, right? And out of all of those big hitters, we have like Phases, Bait, Gamer Legion, NIP. I think we both came to the agreement that even though they've had, kind of a recent skid in form, NIP feels like the most solid out of those other like big name teams in this stage, right?
Yeah, I mean, walk me through a little bit about what you think like the top heavy teams are personally, just at, like, let's say floating the 3-0 in that same caliber that you're mentioning now.
I think the other teams that are really highly likely to go 3-0 in my opinion would be like a Bait or a Gamer Legion. It feels like FaZe are just, they're struggling too much to where they're going to lose some games. And then beyond that, you have Fnatic that are really reliant on Blame F to really get anything over the line. Paravision are definitely like a question mark that could do really well, but they are very much like the wild card in this bracket. And then once you get past NIP, you just have teams that like FlyQuest are, well, not bad. They just carry like obvious like question marks to me. So like, well, could an M80 go 3-0? Maybe, but it seems like betting on that versus say an NIP or a Bait just seems like way worse.
Yeah, so basically what I was setting up with that question is that when you have at least a spread of teams that we're gonna even be able to make arguments for going 3-0, right? The one thing that NIP has that a lot of these teams simply don't is just the sheer number of LAN reps that they've had as a unit, as a 5, and the only other team at all since the Austin Major that has that same level of conversation point is Bait, and they've lost to NIP in a head-to-head, so that's just one isolated factor. But if you are going to be giving any other team the credence, it's got to be Bait, because they have that same level of just experience with one another, the chemistry that's been built up over all of this time, the lack of roster changes that NIP have succumbed to in that period of time, albeit, and all things considered, but rightfully so. Bait, not so much. I think that they've actually grinded out and found some serious victories against serious teams, namely Bucharest. They blew people out of the water with Astralis, 3D Max, and Legacy all buckling under them. So, for me, I mean, we have our sights set on NIP, but I would be 100% fine with anybody saying Bait in that same slot.
Yeah, I think a very realistic outcome if you were to go through the simulator is Bait and NIP in a 2-0 match. Like, I think that's very likely to happen. And that's, at that point, you're kind of taking a 50-50. So if you chose Bait over NIP, I would get it. I personally just have a lot of belief in Snappy, and I think Wrinkle and Kaspersky are just such a great star duo. So I'm going to lean on NIP, like their bad results being kind of a mirage, and they're going to come into the major strong. I think NIP to 3-0.
And to, I guess, like, cap that off as well is that, looking at the team from top to bottom as far as their experience is concerned, right? Like the fact that they have such young players with a lot still under their repertoire to build as far as lands are concerned, let alone majors, right? I think Snappy and Shush, like those two guys, this is where they need to have 10 toes down. This is where they need to prove that they're here for that reason, right? Because X Kaspersky's been here to just put the gun in hand and start to click. And one player who hasn't been doing that really, in my opinion, is not on the chopping block necessarily, but in my opinion would be the player to look at after this major concludes is Wrinkle. He has been a bit of a non-factor for me recently, whereas he was that player before X Kaspersky was here. And, if we're going to be talking by the numbers, by the stats and by things of all that nature, he would also be that guy. It's not only the eye test. So for those of you who are knowing what NIP is all about, they're all about the balance from top to bottom of that experience, and now is the time at a major to use it. Yep.
So like I said, the 3-0 is definitely, it feels like every time we get to these stage 1 pick'ems, you're definitely taking a lot of risk here. But keep in mind, if you're new to playing pick'ems, you only need to get 5 correct picks. So you don't need the perfect bracket. You just need to shoot for the balance of probability. So when we look towards the 0-3, for example, you have to consider some things, right? There's a kind of a trend at majors for Chinese teams to do better in best of ones. So when you look at a team like Rare Atom, they're definitely not the strongest roster here, but could they fluke their way through a best of one? That's definitely possible. Their opening round matchup against Imperial specifically seems like one where they could get a win over a line. And if you picked Rare Atom just off the back of them being the worst seeded team, you'd already be blowing a pick there. So when I look towards the 0-3s, Tony, personally what I'm seeing are teams like the Huns, Red Canids, maybe a Fluxo, maybe an NRG. Those are kind of the teams that stand out to me.
Yeah. We were saying, pardon me, actually, we were saying that it's a toss-up in some ways that this major has that not a lot of other ones do. And I think that the good thing about this major, if I were to give it like 2 thumbs up, the fact that it's such a toss-up is that it's not because there's just so much random factors going into it. It's not like stand-in on stand-in like last major had for some teams, or like, teams with no history on land whatsoever. I think that by virtue of VRS kind of smoothing out as best as it possibly can at this point, it's because the teams are pretty good.
Yeah, I think so. I think the average level of competition is actually a lot higher at this major compared to previous ones. With that being said, I think that on the balance of everything, my leaning for O3s would be the Huns and Red Canids, because when I look at the first round matches specifically, they are, I think, heavily not favored in those. I think Paravision, as we'll get to, is kind of a sneaky strong team, and they're more land proven against better competition than the Huns are. And then Fnatic is playing Red Canids, and BlameF can definitely hard carry that best of one.
Yeah, I'm cool with being the guy in these pick'ems that puts the Asian team in the 0-3 and gets made to look a fool, because I'm personally not going to give any credence to the people who see the 0-3 for, like, let's say even both Red Adam and the Huns and are like, you idiot, you put them in 0-3, you actually think that they wouldn't win a game? Because yes, I don't think they would win a game.
Yeah, it's just when you look at the matchups, Rare Adam has a better chance of winning the first round. If you win the first round, you're automatically out of the 0-3 contention, right?
Right,
so,
yeah.
Out of the first round matchups, the Huns just have the worst than Rare Adam.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really have much more to add about either of these teams as the 0-3 picks. There's a lot of teams you could slot in here, and these are the teams where Red Canids, they stay in kind of that Brazilian tier 1.5 cycle. They rarely go international. When they go international, they're losing. The Huns, they're also one of those teams that's pretty sequestered to their own region. They don't play international very often. When they do, they get beat up on. They seem like kind of the two obvious picks to me.
Yeah, and Red Canids just came off of a local, not a local land, but a regional land in Sao Paulo where they lost to Keyed Stars and Yawara in best of threes.
That is not a good look.
Not a great look whatsoever going into the high point of the season, ladies and gentlemen.
And now we get to the Chaos Zone, Tony. I feel like the best way to go about this is we should just plaster the 6 teams in and talk about why they're there and what could go in their place. So
you know what? Wait! Before you do that, I actually think we could maybe even plaster in the top 3 and the bottom 3, because we did it interestingly enough to the point where I think we can separate them like that.
Okay, I think that's fair. So the top 3 we had were FaZe, Bait, and Gamer Legion.
Yep.
And I feel like those stand out as these are teams that exist in the top 15 to top 10. They play against better competition routinely. FaZe, for all its problems, do tend to play better at majors, and they should just be solid enough to where if they go to a last day, if it's a last day best of 3 and it's like Bait versus LinVision, I'm taking Bait every time.
And for all intents and purposes, you throw the dart at the dartboard, and these teams on any given day, if you're not looking at that dartboard, might hit the bullseye and go 3-0. Like, there's a world for all 3 of them where anybody could make that argument and also not be surprised that it ends up happening. So that's where I'm at with those 3.
Yeah, these feel like the unshakable. These should be going to stage 2 in some formulation. After that,
and this is where
it gets wild. I feel like the first place I would want to start is actually Paravision, because it's the team that, out of all of these, I have had the opportunity to cover the least of. They have not played in any tournament I've talked about this year, and they got into the major on a hope and a prayer because of all the VRS shenanigans at the end of the split with teams dropping out of Pro League and the Fragadelphia and the Blocktober and everything. They went on just a storm of results to get into the major in the first place, and they are a wild card. Because James is back to IGLing. He's looking better as an individual while he's doing it. And they are probably going to be one of the teams with the least amount of prep for everyone else. Like, everyone else is going to have tape on a lot of these teams. Pretty much none of them have played Paravision other than, I think, Bait and NIP.
Yeah. I mean, online, Paravision have been grinding out win after win after win after win. They've been getting best of 3s at nobody's business in terms of teams that they're taking on as well. I mean, the quality is there. They are adjacent to a lot of these rosters, and naming some earlier on when AW was only just being integrated into the newly put in James system, and Passion UA, Fnatic, OG, like, these are teams that could very well have been at this stage of the major as well. I mean, obviously Passion UA are at the major at a higher level, but ENCE are another team that you could have made an argument if they just put in a little bit more of that elbow grease could be as well. And Paravision on LAN have played against a solid number of teams, or rather not a solid number, but a solid quality of teams in beating out a Bet Boom in a best of 5 recently to practically bump them from a lot of their potential in the near future.
Rest in peace, Bet Boom. It's been real.
Yeah, as well as taking on Bait, NIP, and Gentlemates. Like, they've got reps against better teams. Like, they actually do have that to say, but what they don't is they don't have reps against any of these other teams, and I don't know whose detriment that's actually to be honest with you, like you mentioned.
Yeah, no, I think that they are a dark horse team for me. They are if I'm any of these teams, I'm kind of most worried about this matchup. Like, this is the total blind spot matchup to me. And then James
Right.
just brings a lot of veteran savvy, a lot of experience to this team. Russian teams are just going to shoot really hard. Like, the big concern, obviously, is that I hate James calling. I hate the James system. I hate the James philosophy. But I also can't question the fact that when it works, it works. And especially in, like, a late best-of-3 scenario, that's where, like, a 2-2 game, that's where I'd be scared most to play this Paravision team.
Yeah, talking about the integration of AW 4 months back, it has been a little bit of a bumpy ride for James to bring in so many young players and try to mold them all at the same time, in my opinion. But it seems like everybody is just coming along little by little at a rate that doesn't really feel like anybody is majorly falling off, right? So AW getting in more and more lands up to this stage now. This is where he's going to be tested to his highest degree, and the same could be said for Noda and Zylo as well as Belchanok, just the same. So it's going to be really fun, I think, to see if Paravision can make good off of all the progress they've made in steps and in strides to make it back to Budapest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, I feel like they're a risk, but they're like a confident risk, is what I would say. Now, the team that I think is going to be the most contentious, and I'm going to put them here first because ultimately I'm actually going to bring them out for my list, is Fnatic. I think
I thought we were at FlyQuest.
No, so I'm going to get there in a second. I think for my list, Fnatic wouldn't make it, but I feel like on odds, if you were to put Fnatic, I would totally understand why. I feel like ultimately what this boils down to is how much do you believe in Blameout's ability to kind of just solo carry through these games. And he's done it like the whole year. Like, he's been the guy. And then the obvious elephant in the room is that Fnatic, to the chagrin of the community, hoed Cypher at the last moment. Cypher didn't get his major spot. It's Crimson Jacasmo in. And I feel like the reason I'm going to lead them off and I don't want them to go through is because of how they did Cypher, not necessarily because of the quality of Counter-Strike. So if you want to make just a quality of Counter-Strike argument, I would understand. So
this is a little bit of a curveball to me to see them brought onto the thing. That's why I'm leaving you.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm taking them back out. I'm taking them back out. I'm saying that if you did put them in, I would get it.
Chat, that was a statement that he just made, okay?
Yes.
That was a statement.
Yes, that was me grandstanding. I'm going to get off the soapbox now. The
now
actual next team is
spoiler alert.
Is FlyQuest. And if you've been around the channel for a long time, you know I'm a FlyQuest non-believer. I'm a FlyQuest hater. I don't see it. This team, for like what feels like the last 2 majors, has gone 2-0 in the best of ones to lose every single best of 3 and just destroy themselves out. Now, Tony made a great argument about them bringing in the new coach and changing the system a little bit and changing some of the roles and stuff. And I do think JKS is just a net buff to this team that should make them more sturdy. So even though I'm just notoriously not a fan, I see the vision on this one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, talking also about the fact that he was a little bit more of an unofficial coach at one point in time before being fully announced. I can only imagine joining this team, and obviously probably wanted to let them have a little bit of time to see how he could integrate into their working system, right? Mm-hmm. But over time, I think that he found that to be a little bit unsustainable, a little bit unreasonable to find players playing certain positions, and tried to smooth it out as best as he can. And I think that definitely did show. I mean, that 3D Max win at the most recent LAN that they had played, as well as just how the players looked as far as maybe not being the most comfortable in their new spots, but definitely more, I think, reasonably stationed to be able to find more individual success, is a net plus in the long term for their growth, as far as being a pretty fire-heavy team. I mean, this is probably the most firepower heavy that FlyQuest has ever been. I don't even think that's arguable.
No,
so,
I think that's absolutely correct.
To not see them shooting to the level that previous FlyQuest teams have, that was a little weird. But now it feels like things are starting to rectify, at least little by little. So if they can't right now, then I kind of alluded to it earlier. If they can't, be ready to be disappointed, but they should.
It's kind of a if not now, when with this roster. Like, they need to like put up something to not like justify further changes. They need to do something here at the major, and I feel like they're in a good position to do so. Obviously, they're gonna have a tough start because I don't think they're gonna beat Legacy in the opening game. But dropping one best of one, maybe you drop to the lower bracket, you get one of the like kind of weaker teams, and that could set you up to make that cruise through the middle of the bracket. Like, I could see them being a 2-1-2 team, a 3-1 or a 3-2 team off the back of that. So yeah, FlyQuest is in. Now leaves us with one more choice.
One more choice.
And maybe this is NA bias. I acknowledge that. But M80 to me, just they feel like they have more upside than the other remaining rosters. And that's what this kind of came down to. NRG were an interesting discussion we had. They're definitely a team that could, like, outside, as my fear for them is the best of ones, but maybe you could see a world where NRG could just kind of hit a heater. Fluxo,
yeah.
I just do not believe in art. Just not a fan. Lin Vision are just the eternal coin toss. I don't know how to rate Lin Vision ever. I don't know if you have any thoughts on them. They are a team that I just am perplexed about perpetually.
I think Lin Vision is actually really solid in that the Call Me Sue pickup is one that will definitely bring them a little bit more of a floor that they didn't really have before, with also a marginal exploration of a higher ceiling. I think that Lin Vision could come into this one in 3-0, if you want my honest opinion. Like, they were somebody who I wouldn't argue in that pool as a dark horse to do so. But they come into this with a lot of support. They come into this with a lot of, I think, lack of outward pressure. They come into every event practically on these lands and prove that they're capable of taking on a lot of the teams in this same pool, namely Bait, Gamer Legion, and even 3D Max at a higher level stage. And they then prove to be a little bit disappointing in other moments. But yeah, I think Lin Vision, for me personally, they're a team that I would personally maybe even put on my own if we were to do two separate pick'ems, you and I.
Okay.
But yeah, that's just my, because I feel like we were going to go with the video without giving much on Lin Vision, and I think that it's fair that people know that.
I think that's a fair argument. I want to give people the ability to make some choices based on what they feel. And so
I love M80. I feel them in my heart, dude. I feel them in my heart.
M80 is the vibe pick.
pick.
It's the vibe pick, 100%. Yeah. They got the good logo back. You know, Lake, I'm waiting for Lake to figure it out. I feel like he's
most handsome player named after a body of water.
It's true. Many people are saying this. And like he's been better internationally compared to like the Austin Major cycle, which I feel like was the big issue, was he would go missing against international competition. And then I'm a big Hex T guy. I'm a big Hex T supporter. I think Hex T is actually a great player to play alongside him. I don't know. My gut says M80 are making it to stage 2. That's where I've landed.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I mean, like, jokes aside, like, this team has been, like, one of the beacons of energy, I think, that we still have left in LAN Counter-Strike outside of your, primarily, I think, South American teams that obviously are always going to be bringing a level of intensity. But when they're winning, when they're getting the ball rolling, Hext and Lake are going to be able to bring a level of heat to the server and into especially a LAN environment where the other team hears you that not a lot of other teams have as far as that presence is concerned. And I think that if they do manage to get the ball rolling hot, if they do manage to hit the iron while it's heating up, especially in best of threes, that's where you can really get into other teams' heads. And even if you might not think that professionals are going to be succumbing to that, I think that they'll do a little bit more than that than you may believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think with that, Tony, I'm locked in. This is my pick'ems. I feel confident about these picks. We're set in stone. And we'll see how it looks when we get to the other side. So, Tony, well, obviously we'll be back for stage 2 pick'ems when that's done. If you guys have any feedback, you want to see the format a little differently, would you want to see Tony build his own pick'ems list in contrast against my own for the next one? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you go check out Tony on his YouTube channel, Twitter, and Twitch. He's streaming all the time. Content's on the way. Thank you, Tony, for taking the time to sit down with me, as always.
Yeah, of course. I mean, these are always a lot of fun. You get to do a little bit of yapping about teams that maybe a lot of people don't actually know a whole hell of a lot about by nature of the fact that they watch you. You said yourself you don't cover some of these teams sometimes. So the major is always a good time to get an eye on some of those guys and maybe just give a little bit more info that they might not have had. So thanks for having me, man.
100%. If you guys enjoy this content, almost got through the video on one of those. If you guys enjoy this kind of content, you should be leaving a like, leave a comment down below, subscribe to the channel like I already said. Help me take us by the end of the year. Follow me on twitch.tv/LionHeartZ2 as well. Thank you to all of my channel members. You guys know who you are. We'll keep it brief tonight. If you want to support me directly, it's the number one way to do so. For $5 a month, you can support me directly, as well as get your name at the end of the video just like this, as well as custom on our community Discord. Thank you to all of our channel members. I'll see you guys in another video. Peace.